welcome back, subscribers and listeners. So last time we left off on the cosmogenesis of the objective realm as we started going into the phenomenal and the phenomenal and nominal plane. So we'll start right off and get right into it. Again, I am reading from the book of Un Nefer Amen. We are, sorry for the time delay. It's been a rough year. But I'm getting by. So again, my time is definitely dedicated to the understanding of this book because when I first grabbed this book, I was totally confused and I set it back down. Didn't even excite me. I didn't even know what I was reading. So they found me again, which was beautiful. And here I am. Actually took me 4 years later to get back into the book, which is beautiful. So anyway, I like to continue reading verbatim. There are some times where I'll go off and read just so I can get the understanding of what it's saying to me. Again, when I start reading this book, I took a lot of illustrations into fact when I start putting together my PowerPoint presentations, as well as putting any presentation when it comes to the perception of the mind, seeing how we all think, act, and feel differently. Okay? Alrighty, so in this area, this is a well-known plane of physical energy matter from the gluons to galaxies. So each of these planes are in turn subdivided, okay? The division of the the new nominal plane, on this one, the noumenal plane, is going to be broken down into different names. So you'll hear Atziluth, and I'll explain that to you later, as Teluth, Bra, and then I'll break down the great divine Trinity of that, in which it is the Ba. Some that are familiar with these lingos, please correct me if I'm wrong at any notion, but I do my best when it comes to the pronunciation of these words. The Ka, or the Ku, again, the Shechem, and then we get into the upper Yetzirah, and then the lower Yetzirah, and then it gets into the Ashaya. So what we spoke of before, all of that is part of the noumenal plane. And then towards the end of the reading today, which is the Ashaya, we'll be going into the phenomenal plane. Okay. And then we'll end out with the different divisions of the spirit. And later on today, we'll step into the manifestation of subjective being and how all of that will make sense later. Okay. All right. Again, welcome back. We'll be going to the division of the noumenal plane, which in the first segment we call it the Astaluth. Okay. Now, when the undifferentiated energy matter of the subjective realm is acted upon by the divine will, its first manifestation is an objectification of a portion of its substance, which maintains its undifferentiated quality. Now, the state of the object energy matter is called Astaluth in the Canaanite Kabbalistical tradition. Now, in the Kemetic tradition, this plane is under the dominion of the goddess Nut. Now, incidentally, Nut is not the sky goddess or heaven as held by the Egyptologists. The sky and heaven are used as metaphors to convey the fact that what is referred to is not differentiated in space or time. So where does the sky begin? Where does it end? The sky is the emblem of the infinite, the boundless, the eternal. All right, so again, the eternal. So the sky is the emblem of the infinite, the boundless, the eternal. This holds true for all the so-called sky gods. So the fact is that the realities here describe Nu and Nut and can only be contacted by going into the recesses of the mind. So right now, if you can just close your eyes. Now, didn't you find yourself looking into what resembles the night sky, dark and endless? Think about going deeper into it. Now, we will be talking a great deal more about this in the chapters as we go on into the meditation. Again, this is a study of meditation, manifestation, initiation. As we get deeper into the volumes of the books, we'll break that down. But everything that we are speaking of has to be very much understood before we get to those higher areas, because one must understand how the hemisphere of the brain works and how we connect to everything around us and how it creates these thoughts in our head, whether they're good or bad, and how much it is important when we're in that objective film to not even have a thought in our head, which would then make it more subjective. Okay. So carrying on, as energy matter on this plane, which again is the Azimuth, or you can refer to as Newt, is undifferentiated. That is, so there is only one building element, and it can give rise to only one entity. Now, this entity is the one vehicle within which dwells all things in the world. Now, in this world, so the Ba of Comatians, the Yashida of the Canaanites, the Hanhum of the Akan, the first aspects of the Uti Wetango of the Bantu, and the Anadamaya Kusha of the Hinduism. The deity that resides in this division of the spirit is the first manifestation of the Supreme Being. Usar of the Comatians, Abatala of the Yorubas, Nakaumpun of the Akan, Tara and Shiva of the Indus, Kush, etc. Okay, so we can see how the deities are the same, but again, depending on the Niles and what part of the river you fell when Babel went to that, decides you rely on, which makes, again, we'll go on that later, but which makes the aspects of why we want to relate religion to spirituality and why spirituality is related to religion, and this book definitely breaks that down in so many ways. Okay, so as we get into the sphere of the tree of life is Kether, it is important to realize the connections between the functions of unification presented by these deities and the fact that their environment is composed of a single building element, and that there is only one body, one being at this level. Okay. Now, we will see later that it is to this plane and in this body that people's consciousness ascends to when experiencing those highest manifestations of trance called samadhi, samadhi in Hinduism. Because there is only one being on this plane, and it is here that the unity between all things is inherently experienced. For example, one experience that all things and events in the world are one, as one experiences that all of our bodily members are parts of our body. I like that phrase when they say there's nothing new under the sun. We're living in this spiral of a world in which we can totally get out of if we think differently as people, as humans. All right, so that was the first segment, which described the Aztaluth, again, the Newt, Ba. So we're going to go into the Bria. It is Bria and Kainite. The name is given to the second level of energy matter densification. So here there are two building elements which allow for the creation of two bodies. The universal spirit, which is the Ba, and in the level above dualizes itself to give rise to the two universes, the spirits within itself. So again, I'll read that again. So here there are two building elements which allow for the creation of two bodies. The universal spirit, which is the Ba, in the level above. So that again, we go into the great divine Trinity. The one is the Ba, two is the Kau, and three is the Shakam. The Ba, or the Yashidi, or the Shaya, or the Shakina. Again, there's all different names. We will relate these divineness to. So again, the universe spirit Ba in the level above dualizes itself to give rise to the universal spirits within itself. So one is the organ system through which it wills manifestations to be. This part of the spirit is called the Ku by the Comatians, and Shaya by the Kenites. Herein dwells Kukma, the second spear of the tree, and the wisdom deities Tehuti of the Comatians, Ifa of the Yabru, and Nakanad and Adumakoma of the Akan, and Shenasmasta of the Indus, Kush, etc. No disrespect, I apologize if I pronounce any of those names incorrectly. The one that I'm most familiar with in my studies, going through the Un Nefer Amen book of Betu Neter, would be Tehuti. Tehuti is the second spear in the Pa'u Neteru. Most symbolize himself with the Kabbalah, and some also call it, I believe, when we were going through that earlier, it's called different tree. But we'll get into the different trees of life, so it could be called the Kether. That's what we read earlier. Alrighty, so with that being said, this part of the spirit is called the Ku, the Comatians, and we have broke that down by each and every one of different tribes. So the other spiritual vehicle is the organ system, wherein resides the seeds of the individual forces that are responsible for the actualization of the types of things that are willed to the manifested by the second spear. This part of the spirit is called the Shekem by the Comatians, the Shekinah by the Canaanites. Herein resides Bina, the third spear of the tree of life, and the deities in which I'm familiar with through the Un Nefer Amen, through the Betu Neter, is Sekert. And of the Comatians is Kali, another Comatian, Kali of Indus, Kush, Balau, Aye of the Yarus, and Kalunga of the Bantus, etc. Now these two, the second and third divisions of the spirit, again we're speaking of Tehuti and Sekert right now. They are the second and third divisions of the spirit in the world, as in men. The will and the power part of the spirit interacts with each other in the manner of creative organs to bring into manifestation and to affect all things and events in as the world. Together with the first division of the spirit, the Ba, they form the great divinity Trinity, in which we went over already, which is the Kabbalistic tradition of the Canine, is called the Nishama. Again, the great divinity Ba, the world, soul, in which all things dwell as an integral part of the one divine being. Spears. Ku, the Shaya, okay, by the Canaanites, as the universal divine will, which initiates the manifestation of each thing and event. It appoints to each thing its place in time and space. Now it gets deeper, but when I get to my PowerPoint presentations and the illustration of how I look at this is like the beginning and the creating of Earth. The universe. And I connect the Sekerts on a presentation, the Neters, the Nemetu Neters are what we're speaking of right now, and many different names, but again, I remember them as the Metu Neter being Tehuti and Sekert, in which we're speaking of right now, which is the second and third spear of the Pa'u Neteru, the true lies of the Kabbalists would say, the Kabbalah. And the divine Trinity, that would be the 1, 2, and 3, which is the crown in which we hold. So again, you have a world soul, you have the universal divine, the Ba is the soul, the Ku, which is the second, is the will, and then the third, which we say Shekem or Shekinah, is the power. So now you have world soul, universal divine will, and universal power. The third one on that divine Trinity crown, that in which we all hold, it carries to physical manifestation the universal power, which carries to a physical manifestation the dictates of the universal divine will through its 50 units of power. The Beni Alahim, or the 50 gates of Bina, as they are called in the Canaanite Kabbalistical tradition, and the 50 oarsmen of the boat of Usar in the Sirius star, as they are called in the Comatian system, or the 50 garlands or skulls of the necklace of Kali, as they are called in the Indus Kush, or 50 matrikas, wombs, little mothers, of the body of the great mother Kundalini, or the Kundalini, Kundula. Interesting. So that together is the first division of the spirit, the Ba, the form of the great divinity Trinity, in which we formed around that those three, the Ba, the Ku, and the Shekhem. Okay. Now we're going to go into the upper Yetzirah. Again, there's lower, upper, and lower, as we were speaking of before. So the upper Yetzirah is the third level in the graduated dissification of energy matter towards physical manifestations. Now, each of the two building elements of the preceding stratum, which is the Bria, divide themselves to create 4 building elements. Okay, it's always multiplying by 2. We learned that in school. If not, I'm breaking that down very well on a new PowerPoint that I'm working on. If not, it's already illustrated in the spirit or the religious versus spirituality on my YouTube channel under Cozy by You. But the Bria divided themselves to create 4 building elements, which enable the manifestation of 4 great spiritual bodies. Now, although they are all referred by one common name, they are the spirits of the 4 great kingdoms on earth, which is the mineral, the vegetal, animal, and human. Each of these spiritual vehicles serves as the unifying body for all of its members. Now, when a person is able to bring his or her consciousness to this level, the experience of oneness with all other humans is achieved. For the fact that we are all integral parts of the whole represented by the spirit of the human kingdom in the plane of Yetzirah. Again, we're in that lower area when it comes to these, the Trinity. I like to say it's related to the Merkaba. Okay, so we'll get into all that when we start explaining the Platonic 6, and it just gets so uniquely put together. And what we're doing now is we're breaking it apart, and then we're going to put it back together again. And by the ending of, hopefully with this book, you'll see how everything connects together. And then we can move on forward into volume 2, which once we already have this in our mind of how that's going, which again, we are on just the basic, I won't say basic, this is nothing about this is basic, but it does explain the system, the spiritual cultivation system in which we're going over right now. That is inside of us, okay? In the next chapter 2, when we get into that volume 2, we'll be going into the Kemetic initiation system. And again, right now we're going over how to get the body to the state of mind, the soul again. So we have the soul, the will, and the power to be able to get to that meditating period to where we are meditating correctly. Okay. All right. So moving forward, the division of the spirit at this level again is called Ab. So let me back up. So we have Ba. Okay. So let's back up a little bit, because when a person is able to bring his or her consciousness to this level, as we spoke about, the experience of oneness with all other humans is achieved for the fact that we are all integral parts of this system. And again, the system we're on right now is the human kingdom in the plane of Yetzirah. Now, right now we're in the upper Yetzirah kingdom. Okay. We're in the 3rd level in the graduated densification of the energy and matter around the physical manifestations in which we are. Again, the embodiment of the elements are broken down to 4 spiritual bodies. And again, that is mineral, vegetal, animal, and human. Okay. So moving forward, that being said, the division of the spirit at this level is called the Ab. By the Kamatians, the upper Arusha by the Canaanites, the Okra or the Nakra by the Akans, and Utiwemutu by the Bantu, etc. In addition, the part of this spirit links the thinking principles in men with the 4-folding organization principles in the world. So serving this as an intuitive means of discovering the 4-fold organizations in nature. So herein reside the 4th, 5th, and 6th spears of the tree with the respective deities. And again, we get into the respective deities when we speak about the 4th, 5th, and 6th. We're now going into Mayat, we're going into Hadru Kahuti, and we're going into Hadru. Okay, we always start with the So, with the Ba, and then we get to Tahuti, Sekert, which again, breaking down that first divine Trinity, which is now breaking down into what we spoke of power when it broke down into all these little tiny particles. But within those building elements, as we spoke of before, just kind of giving you guys a summary, we spoke about how they come their own forked spirit, own individual great spiritual bodies. Okay, so in this upper Zetara what we're speaking of is, again, the four great kingdoms on earth is mineral, vegetal, animal, and human. And as human being, like in alchemy and the Big Bang Theory would say, that we are the last, meaning here's how we got here. Now we're going to go back to see where we came from. And again, this is what we speak of, where we all came from. But being as a human with all this power, we were just never taught how to use it correctly. Now, had it been explained like this, I can't fathom how way more accomplished I'd be in life right now, just understanding this method and psychological way of thinking about life and yourself, because it's all about philosophies and methods. So, all right. So moving forward, so because of their presence, this part of the spirit provides order in the manifestation of events in the world. Now we're going to get into the lower Yetzirah now. And it is the Canaanite name for the fourth stratum of energy, matter differentiation of the objective plane. Okay. Now, herein dwells the seventh spirit of the tree, in relation to which the four building elements of the preceding plane are divided into 8 building elements and spiritual vehicles, which serve as the families, classification set of species. Now, these in relations to the species creating spheres, Hud, are further divided into 16, 32, 64, and so forth. As you know, every time an element moves, it multiplies, and it keeps multiplying. 12 times 12, and then it gets to 48, 48. So I believe the biggest it got was 64. No, actually it's 156. No, it's 256. But we'll look about that. We'll go into that later. I've never been so good at math, and this book kind of helped me understand geometry and really parts of trigonometry that I was not able to get when I was in high school and college. So this is a great book to start when it comes to science and how we start moving around these spheres. And it does help explain how the multiplication, the vision of how everything just became so beautiful as it is now. So yeah, it was right there. So 32, 64, and 256 sets of the spiritual vehicles. Okay. So these latter elements contain the programs or patterns upon which are based the species, things, or events in the world. Okay. Again, we'll get into that. That speaks about the trees of life. And typically, when it comes to Kabbalah, we go into the Pa'uneturu. It's not really highly defined how Metatron, Raziel, Michael, Gabriel, Ariel, and how all those actually connect to the Metunetarus. So again, those names, I have made a chart to explain to you who those people are in relation to the netters. It's just like fallen, not I want to say falling angels, but they did fall, and they are the same, and they have the same purposeful meaning. It's just, again, the trees of life in different planes. So this individual spirit is called the Ka. So when we get into the latter elements, again, contain the patterns or patterns upon which are based the species of things or events in the world. Now, also found here is the ninth sphere, in the relation to which is generated the vehicle that defines each thing or events as an individuated spiritual existence. In that existence. So the individuated spirit is called Ka in the tradition. So again, the individuated spirit is called Ka in the Kamatian tradition. The division of the spirit that contains all of these spheres is 7th, 8th, and 9th. With their respective deities is called the Sha'u by the Kamatians and the lower Raush by the Kenites, the Amadala by the Bantu, and the Ai by the Yoruba. Now, in Metunetunu, he does speak of the individuated spirits is called Ka. So again, in this level, Ka is a philosophy and method, and there are stages of a man. But you take Ka and multiply it by 2, it goes up higher again, and that's when you'll start seeing how you start off. This individual person starts off with just by himself, and then 2 because of the soul, and then 2, and it just gets bigger and bigger again. There's 256 sets of spiritual vehicles within this universe, and each one of them being those sets is it's like multiplied into one tree, and it just gets bigger and bigger. And if you get to the point where it's understanding this tree of life, then you can see how much is inside of this tree, which gives us so much more knowledge as we continue to break this down in the book. Okay. All right. Again, if you have any questions, please leave it in the comments line. I'll be more than happy to explain. We can have Zoom and study groups, and first session is always free at Cozy by You, and after that, I only charge $25 per session. Those sessions can last up to an hour. Ishaya is the name given to the fifth. So now we're going to go into the phenomenal, which we just ended the noumenal plane. We're going to go into the phenomenal plane now. Now, Isha is the name given to the fifth and lower stratum of the organization of the objective plane. And its densest point, it involves the physical molecules, and on the subtletest, it is made up of energies and substances that have to be classified as physical, yet are subtler than anything thus found by the Western scientists. Yeah. So the subtle aspect of Isha is called in the occult tradition of Europe the astral light. In the astral division of Isha, or Asha, dwells the sixth division of the spirit, which was called the Ka'ibit by the Kamatians, the Nepish by the Canaanites, and the Ojiji by the Yorubas, the Sumsum by the Akans, the Paraniyama by the Kosha, or Linga Sariya by the Hindus, the Insatunsi by the Bantus, and the astral body or the etheric double of European occultism. This part of the spirit is the life vehicle of the physical body. It is what makes a person live on earth. Now, it is the seat of the physical force, sensations, desires, emotions, and motivations of the person. For example, physical and physical movement. So it is that which breathes and lives on oxygen within the physical existence. So without this part of the spirit, physical bodies are nothing but lifeless shells. The astral division of the spirit is under the jurisdiction of the deities Ra and Geb of the Kamatians tradition and the Kundalini force of the Hindus Kush. Okay. Again, Asha is the name given to the fifth and lower stratum of the organization of the objective plane. Again, the objective plane is starting from nothing and going down into something really big. And all those trees are connecting, as you can see, in each sphere, 7, 8, 9, 4, 5, 6, 3, 2, 1. But in this area, we're in that lower half of the Asha. And this is where we find that atomic and the molecular organization of the physical matter. And this is the part of the spirit dwelling on this plane, is the well-known physical body, which is called the Kab by the Kamatians, the Gupf by the Canaanites. And it must be noted that in the traditional African metaphysics, that there is no distinction between that has been made between the physical and the men's higher bodies. For example, the physical body is considered an integral part of the spirit and its densest component. Okay, so again, it is also noted that in African metaphysics that there is no distinction made between the physical and men's higher bodies. But the physical body itself is considered a very integral part of the spirit, as it's been densitized. Everything that we're going through is going through densification. So when we have to keep densing something, the densification of something becomes smaller and smaller of. And this is how far we're going back and why it makes so much sense when it comes to the elements around us. When we speak about the atom, when we speak about molecules, the grain of salt. There is a illustration I'll do speaking of where we first came from. So I believe it's called Lebrion, but I'll get into that chart later. But moving forward, the failure to realize that man has 7 and not 1 body, and all the things have a spirit, and is one of the major causes of people's stagnation and errors, and both in thought and action. 7 bodies. Okay, so an integral summary of the above will further elucidate the purpose of each division of the spirit and their relation to each other in the whole. So, first division. The first division of the spirit is the seat of the consciousness and the identity. Again, that is the true ego of being. The second and third division. This is the creative organ of being. It is the will and the spiritual realization, the power, respectively. Now, I want you to know that while the will is the faculty of potential action, spiritual power is the vehicle for the actualization of the actions. Okay. Fourth division is the administrative organs of being. Now, once the manifestations are set in motion by the three preceding faculties, the fourth division of the spirit programs them with the laws that will enable them to achieve their respective goals without violating each other's spheres of interest, as all manifestations occur for the sake of one being, of which they are all parts and not for and of themselves. The fifth division is the specialization organ of being. So it is here that manifestations acquire the spiritual qualities that will distinguish them into families and separate existences. The sixth division is the motive power of being. So the motive power of being, it is here that each manifested thing receives its breath of life if living, or electromagnetic motive force if non-living, to enable it to act upon the physical plane. And the seventh division. It is here that each manifestation is finally separated into an individual existence. This is achieved by receiving a physical body which separates each thing in time and space. Now, when we get into the next verses, we're going to be breaking down the manifestations and how each of those, there's three, I would say three. I'm telling you, the math gets really interesting. I'm going to put these into illustrations, but again, we're just describing the Un Nefer Amen, which is the tree of life. If you go on my webpage, you can see the Kabbalah, you can see the Un Nefer Amen, you can see the Kether. There's a lot of names for this tree of life, but it definitely defines and how we're going to break down each one of these manifestations, each one of these, how they fit into each of their realms, when they're objective, subjective, when we, it's just amazing. So right now we're going to pause on that note and kind of just break down again that in your body, you don't just have one body in there. You have 7 portions in your body that are all working with you. And that again explains the hemispheric portions of our brain. So go back and read the hemispheres of the brain and then come back and connect this again. I felt better connected with this illustration, with this information when I was able to illustrate it into my perception of what this was telling me. And then that's why I started drawing my illustrations and PowerPoints and such. Again, you can read that or take a view at that on my YouTube channel at cozybyyou.com. All right.